In this video, we're going to be showing you how to set up time control in a basic configuration so you can be up and running in fairly short order. We're going to be talking about a couple of things. We're going to show you how to set up system settings and preferences, including setting up the information specific to your company. We're going to talk about the required data tables, the people, the work, and how those are set up. We're going to talk about how to create a timesheet and how to process it, including the various approval options. And we're going to talk about what's possible beyond the basics once you get time control up and running, including some reporting options. Our first step is to set up some configuration and system preferences, including our timesheet periods. Log into TimeControl as the administrator with the username and password that you were provided. Select the Administrator tab and select System Preferences. On the General tab, enter in the name of your company, the week ending day of the first day of the week, and your fiscal year start with the month and the day. Click on the Timesheet tab. There's a number of options on this page, but the ones that we will be looking at to start with are the project options. For some companies, they wish to track time against specific projects along with the tasks associated to those projects. For this scenario, you would select Project Name Required. If you intend to use time control primarily for time and attendance or more simple purposes, you may wish to choose the Project Name Optional or Project Name Disabled. Once you have made your selection, click Apply to save those changes. The next thing we're going to do is set up our timesheet periods. Timesheet periods can be weekly, they can be bi-weekly, monthly, or custom. Well, it's possible to have different periods for different employee groups. For now, we're going to set up a simple weekly period, which is the most common setting. Please note you must have a valid period set created in order for people to enter time. So go to the Maintenance tab, go to Period Generator, click on Period Generator, and go to the upper right and click Add Period. You'll get a dialog box that says, what are we going to call this period? We're going to call it weekly. It's a weekly period, and we're going to set this as a default. The default setting makes it easier when I'm adding new employees, which we'll cover in the next section of this video. It puts the period, automatically selects the correct period for the employee, just makes it easier to add new people. So I'm going to click Save, and that period will be added to my list. If I go to the period I just created and click Edit, then it allows me to put the specifics in. So I'm going to say click on Generate, and I'm going to say how many periods do I want to generate. Typically, you're going to do 52 or something in that range. The generation type is it weekly? Is it bi-weekly, bi-monthly? Some other options. I'm going to say this is weekly. And what day do I want to start this on? I'm going to say I want to start it on Friday, January 3rd, and the label is going to be weekly. And the start at creates a numbering sequence. So I'm going to say start at number 1. I click OK. It's now created those periods, and if I click Save, it makes them available for us to use. Now that we've done our basic configuration and set up our user preferences, we can move on to populating the data tables that are required by time control. This includes information about the employees and the users, the projects and the tasks that are associated to them, some options for rates, and we'll also look at our new user wizard, which makes it simple to go and add new people to time control. I go back to my user interface. I'm logged in as the timesheet administrator. I go to Tables. I select the employee table and select one of my sample employees. So the employee information is pretty straightforward. I have an employee code, which is how the employee is identified in TimeControl. Their first name, their last name, a date called the submit start. The submit start is used to say when did the person start recording time in TimeControl, and we use that as part of our missing timesheet process. Submit finish says I'm no longer tracking this employee, so don't include them on any missing timesheets. Typically, you would put the submit start as the beginning of the period where you're going to be recording time. The timesheet period is the one that we created earlier, and then the user definable fields are available to you at a later date to say what's the metadata associated to the employee. Are they a contractor, or are they a full-time or part-time employee, and that kind of information. My timesheet information contains some various options that you can look at once you get going, but the critical thing is called the release path. The release path defines how the timesheet gets processed, specifically who do I give it to for sign-off, who has to give it the approval at a supervisory level. In this case, Gail Robinson. So Gail is the employee that we're looking at. She is at the top of the list. It's imperative that Gail be on the release path, or she won't be able to create a timesheet. So this is a necessary step. In this case, it's going to go to Tom Logan. Tom Logan, when he's approved it, is going to pass it over to posting. The posting is the last line in the list, and it populates automatically. The next table we're going to look at is the user table. The user table controls all of my login parameters. If I go back to Gail, so I've got Gail R is my user code. The Gail R is how Gail is going to log into the system. This is her login name. The user description is typically the person's first and last name. You have the option for an email address. The profile says what kind of user is Gail. In this case, Gail's an individual user, and she has a pared down set of functionality available to her, and also certain restrictions as to what data she is able to see. The user employee is what user, and the user table is this, or what employee on the employee table is this user associated with. So in this case, it's Gail from the employee table. I have a lookup. I can go and query them and then just select it. And then the next thing is my authentication. So my login security can be TimeControl security or other types of security, including Active Directory. I've got some language options available, and again, user definable fields. I want to make it simple to add a user. I can go to my new user wizard. So rather than having to do each table separately, I just have a wizard that takes me through the whole process. So I'm going to do Bob, put in the username. So that's the login name for Bob. Bob Smith. The profile I'm going to use is individual, timesheet security, the password, and I say next. And it says, what are the language options? So I've got a variety of language options to choose from. And then what employee. So this is Bob. And it's Bob And we're going to say that Bob's going to start on the 30th of September, or start on October the 1st. It's a weekly timesheet, and I've got some options, and the posting, I need to complete the release path, and I have to insert Bob into the release path. So as a minimum, we have Bob Smith, and then the going to posting. Once I've done my employees and my user information, now I need to say, where did you spend your time? We do that from the project table, starting at the project table. And so here's my project table. I've got the project name, project description, the status, it's open, it's closed, various other information. If I want to add one, I simply say, add a project. And it says, what's my project? So it's the Toronto project. It's opened. I apply. And I'm now ready to start putting tasks to that. My tasks are contained in the charge table. And I have some examples here to show you. They're hierarchical in structure typically. And we have an associate, we have the charge code, the description, it's opened, it's closed, some dates on it. What project are we associated to? And then various user definable fields. If I want to add one. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a parent charge code for my Toronto project. And that's opened. The project that we're associating this work to is my Toronto project. I select that and I apply it. And then I would say I want to add an additional charge. So I'm going to say Toronto .1. It's design work. You'll notice that it's associated back to the, I'm going to associate this to the the Toronto project. Because I have a period here in Toronto.1 for design work, it's showing that as being a child of the Toronto parent. So I go ahead and apply that. And Toronto's the parent. Toronto design work is the child. And if I add another, I can just keep going to add my list of tasks. This task is associated specifically to this project. When I'm creating my timesheet and I say, show me the Toronto project, it'll show me design work. The last table I want to look at is the rate table. So charge rates, TimeControl has an ability to say when I work, if I work an hour, then there's a certain cost to that time. So I have various rate codes available to me, and you would create a rate code. You'd add a rate code. You could call it regular time, description of it. You have the option of having it global, which applies to everybody. It can apply to an individual or to what we call a resource group, which is a group of people that are similar types of work, of employees. Each rate code has multiple values. Each one of these values is a cost per hour. So when I do my reporting, I can say, well, if I work 10 hours under my regular code, then it would cost me $250. And under my overtime or burden code, it would be a different value. So it generates various costs based on these costs per hour. Now that we have some data in our tables, we can start creating timesheets. So I'm going to re-log in as one of my end users. And I have a very simple interface that's come up with a dashboard. If I go to timesheet entry, get my entry screen. I say add a timesheet. It's going to say what's the weekend we want to add for. And then my timesheet gets created for that week. And I can say add a line item. It says what project do I want? So I click the project column. It shows me a list of projects. I select the project. I select the charge code. I drill down into my hierarchy of the charge code, select the one I want, and simply say these are the hours I want. I want 8 hours Monday and Tuesday. I do a down arrow and I say I want a new project. I take the Polar project, the task associated with the Polar project. So I did 8 hours Wednesday and Thursday. And last but not least, I can choose from some overhead tasks. If I go to my internal project category, choose internal, and say that I had a vacation day. When I am done entering, I do apply, and my timesheet is complete for the week. This timesheet is going to be self-approving. So Eric is self-approving. It's going to go directly to posting. You do have the option, depending on the release path settings, of sending it to an immediate supervisor who's going to sign off on it. I simply say release. It's going to check for any errors on the timesheet through my validation rules. And I say now that has been released. So this timesheet is now ready for what we call posting. It's grayed out so that Eric's not able to make any corrections unless, of course, he clicks unrelease, which is going to allow him to retake ownership of the timesheet and then make the correction and resubmit it. So let me log out of as Eric. I log out as Eric. I can re-log in as my timesheet administrator. Joseph Gardner is my timesheet administrator. And I would go to timesheet posting. And this is something that can be set up to run automatically, or it could run automatically on a schedule or on demand. In this case, I'm going to say I want to do it on demand. Here's the timesheet for Eric that we just created. I'm going to say go ahead and we'll post that. So what it does for posting is it transfers the data from a temporary status where it's displayed like a spreadsheet into my historical database. So this is now part of my timesheet history. Once it's in my timesheet history, I can do a number of things with it, including doing various reports. For example, I can go to my report interface, which is my option of creating reports. We have the ability to create brand new report templates, or I can select from a list of predetermined reports. Say, go ahead and do the report that shows my bar chart graphic, or I'm sorry, my graphic for a pie chart, and it compiles the report. Typically, I would put some sort of filtering on it to say, show me only a section of the data. But here's a report. I've got a graphic on the top, and I've got some details down at the bottom. I can save this report in a number of formats, including Excel, as a document, as a PDF, as an image, and so pretty much however I need to save it, I'm able to save it. The other reporting tool I have available to me is the Drill Down Analyzer, which is more of a tactical kind of reporting tool. I can set up a template that says, show me certain columns. And if I go ahead and load those columns, it'll say, what do I want to include on it? And if I go to full screen, I have some columns. I've got project, the task associated to it, who did the work, what kind of work was it, what was the cost. But the nice thing about the Drill Down Analyzer is I can group it based on these fields. So for example, I could just drag employee up, and it'll say, well, for the employee, for Gail Robinson, what work did she do? And if I click on that, it just drills down like a pivot table. Again, I can save this in a variety of formats, including doing Excel, export to Excel, save it as a PDF, save it as an image, and so on. The other thing I'm able to do with the posted data, in addition to reporting it, I could export it. So if I wanted to create a data export that would send it to, say, my payroll or my financial software, I would go export tables, and it would allow me to create and save a template that would send the data from my processed timesheet data into a file of my choice, Excel, CSV, text file, that I could then upload into my accounting or payroll software or other corporate software. Additionally, from a connectivity perspective, you have the ability to have an application programming interface and an API. There's an API that is provided with TimeControl. Now that you have the base TimeControl system up and running, you can explore some of the additional options and features that TimeControl has to offer. This includes user-definable fields, import-export options, HR tracking and management, and the TimeControl mobile app. TimeControl Mobile is included with your system at no additional cost and supports both Apple and Android devices. There are a number of resources available to you, including extensive user and technical documentation. To view or download these guides, click on the question icon at the top right of your TimeControl user interface. The TimeControl blog. The TimeControl blog is a collection of ideas, tips and tricks, and timesheet suggestions and recommendations that have been compiled over a number of years. Have a look at blog.timecontrol.com. The TimeControl website. The TimeControl website has a wealth of information available and covers a wide variety of topics and best practices. It includes video lessons, a solutions portal, white papers and articles, as well as support information. The address is www.timecontrol.com. Technical support. Your system includes technical support to assist you when required. The most direct way to contact our support team is by email. Their address is support@hms.ca. For sales-related questions, you can email info@hms.ca.